Halo semua, perkenalkan, nama saya Aye Aung dengan NIM G0025183 dari kelompok A1. Jadi, laporan 1, Tok Talang 65 tahun datang ke rumah sakit A dengan keluhan nyeri di bagian punggung bawah sejak 1 minggu yang lalu. Dokter mengatakan bahwa terdapat gangguan struktur pada tulang belakang Tok Talang. Jelaskan struktur anatomi vertebrae meliputi ossa, ligamenta, articulatio. Okay, so let's discuss the ossa. Ossa itu the spinal column or the columnar vertebrae is a complex structure. It is divided into several regions. 7 vertebrae cervicalis, 12 vertebrae thoracicae, 5 vertebrae lumbale, sacrum, os sacrum, and also os conci. So the column has 4 natural curvatures. They are the curvatura cervical, curvatura thoracica, curvatura lumbar, and curvaturum sacra. And then each region has distinct features. For example, the vertebrae cervicals are unique for having a foramen transversarium. 3 cervical vertebrae are atypical. That is vertebrae cervical 1, which is also called os atlas, and vertebrae cervical 2, which is also called os axis, and vertebrae cervical 7, which is determined as prominent. Moving on to vertebrae thoracicae. Vertebrae thoracicae are characterized by phases of articulation with the ribs called fovea costalis superior, fovea costalis inferior, then fovea costalis processus transversi. These joints are called articulatio capitis costae and articulatio costo transversalia. So moving on to the lower session, and this session is about vertebrae lumbales. So vertebrae lumbale have the largest and most massive corpus vertebrae. Their structure includes the pedicellus and lamina acus vertebrae surrounding the foramen vertebrale. Vertebrae sacralis, which is also called os sacrum, is a fusion of 5 vertebrae. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. On the anterior surface, we can see the promontorium, linea transversae, and foramina sacralia anteriora. Posteriorly, we can find crista sacralis mediana, crista sacralis medialis, and crista sacralis lateralis, and also foramina sacralia posteriora. You can notice that if we look from the anterior part, the foramen are called foramina sacralia anteriora, and if we look from the posterior part, those are called foramina sacralia posteriora. Okay, and moving on to the last one, which is vertebrae coccygeae, also called os coccygus. So os coccygus is the tailbone composed of few vertebra coccygeae 1, 2, and 3 sampai 5. Okay, so now we move on to the ligamenta. So there are 2 main long ligaments, the anterior longitudinal ligament in front of the vertebral bodies and the posterior longitudinal ligaments behind them, which is inside the vertebral canal. And between the laminae, we have the ligamenta flava. And on the posterior aspect of the spinosus processes are the supraspinosus ligament and the interspinosus ligament. In the cervical region, the supraspinosus ligament thickens to become the ligamentum nuchae. So moving on to articulatio. So in this part for articulatio, we are going to learn about the joints. So the main joints between the vertebrae are the zygapophysealis joints. So they have different orientations in cervicalis, thoracica, and lumbalis regions. In the cervical regions, there is a unique joint called the uncovertebral joint. And at the very top, we have the cranial joints, the articulatio atlanto-occipitalis, that is between the atlas and the skull, and the articulatio atlanto-axialis lateralis, that is between the atlas and the axis. Now, for laporan 2, seorang anak bernama Dundung 9 tahun datang ke IGD. Setelah jatuh dari pohon mangga, ia terjatuh dengan posisi miring ke kiri. Saat ini, Dundung mengalami kelemahan gerak dan kehilangan sensasi di sepanjang lengan kirinya. Dokter mencurigai adanya cedera pada Plexus Brachialis kirinya. Jelaskan rangkaian dan susunan dari Plexus Brachialis. So, the Plexus Brachialis is a complex nerve network that innervates the arm. So, if we want to memorize this Plexus Brachialis, there is a mnemonic that we should memorize. So for this part here, that is called roots. For this part here, that is called trunks. And for this area, it is called divisions. And for this one, it is called cords. And for the last one, it is called branches. So we can memorize as remember to drink cold beer. Okay, this is a mnemonic that I learned from a YouTube channel, so I give credit to it. So R stands for roots. So the roots are the ventral rami of C5, C6, C7, and C8. The R stands for roots, and so the roots are the ventral rami of C5, C6, C7, C8, and D1. So T is for trunks. And T is for trunks, and the C5 and the C6 roots unite to form the superior trunk. And C7 continues as the middle trunk, while C8 and D1 combines to form the inferior trunk. And D stands for division. So since the name is division, the trunks that are combined earlier will divide again. So the superior trunk splits into every trunk, whether it's superior, middle, or inferior, they all splits into anterior and posterior division. But the inferior trunk later splits into posterior first and anterior later. So after this come C. So C is for chords, and there are 3 chords, and these 3 chords are formed from the combination of the anterior and posterior divisions from divisions earlier. So the anterior division and anterior division from superior and anterior division from the middle trunks combines to form the lateral chords, while the posterior divisions from the 3 trunks combines to form the posterior chords, and the last division, which is anterior division from the inferior trunk, forms the medial. And then later, these 3 chords forms branches that are called terminal branches, that are musculocutaneous nerve, axillary nerve, radial nerve, median nerve, and ulnar nerve. So moving on to laporan 3. Laporan 3, Minho 33 tahun, merupakan seorang atlet lari cepat, yaitu sprint. Suatu hari ketika sedang berlatih, Minho tiba-tiba mengeluh nyeri hebat di tungkai kanan atasnya. Berdasarkan kasus tersebut, jelaskan anatomi Regio Femoralis meliputi osa muskuli dan inervasi. Okay. So os femora. So os femora is the ossa of the femoral region. So it is the longest and strongest bone in the body. If we look proximally, we can see the caput femoris, column femoris, and then trochanter major, trochanter minor. And the shaft is the corpus femoris, and then distally there is the fasces patellaris. There is also the epicondylus lateralis and also epicondylus medialis. And on the posterior view, a prominent feature is the linea aspera, this one here, and distally we can find the condylus medialis and also condylus lateralis. So next are the musculi or muscles. And the femoral region is divided into 3 compartments. So in the anterior compartment, its main function is knee extension. And the primary muscles are muscle quadriceps femoris and muscle sartorius. And in the medial compartment, its function is in height adduction. It consists of the adductor muscles, which are muscle pectinus, and muscle gracilis. And in the posterior compartment, known as the hamstrings, these muscles flex the knee and extend the hip. So they consist of muscle semitendinosus, muscle semimembranosus, and muscle biceps femoris. So we move on to the innervasi. Okay, so the innervation in this region has 2 plexus, plexus lumbalis and plexus sacral. So the lumbar plexus features 2 particularly important nerves, the femoral nerve and the obturator nerve. The femoral nerve provides motor intervention to the ventral muscles of the hip and thigh, the hip flexors and knee extensors, while also handling sensory input from the ventral side of the thigh and the ventral medial side of the leg. The obturator nerve supplies motor controls to the abductor muscles and receives sensory information from the medial side of the thigh. From the sacral plexus, the most important nerve include the sciatic, gluteal, and pudendal nerve. The sciatic nerve which branches into the tibial and fibular nerves, provide motor innervation to the hamstring muscles, which are hip extensors and knee flexors, and all muscles of the leg and foot. The superior and inferior gluteal nerves handle motor control for the gluteal region muscles, which function as extensors, rotators, and abductors of the hip. Lastly, the pudendal nerve provides motor innervation to the perineal region and carries sensory information from the external genitalia.